This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so once again, good morning. And Naso, Parsha Naso, the second Parsha in Bamidbar, which is page 748 in our Stone Chumashim, Perek Dalid Pasuk Chaf Aleph is where it begins. This is the longest Parsha of the entire Torah. It has 176 Sukkim verses. 176 verses. And it's interesting to note, let me make sure I'm correct on this. Yeah, I am correct on that. The longest tractate of the Talmud has 176 daf, folios, which is interesting. So 176 psukim, 176 daf. Okay, Naso deals with many many different topics as we work our way through, and I want to touch on some of them. If we'll go to we go to page 752, 754, Perek Hey, Psukim Yud Aleph and on, we have the whole Parsha of Sotah. I know I'm jumping into the swamp over here, right? I'm jumping into the a troubling topic, but I like to try to give a better, not a better explanation, an explanation that might be helpful to some of us. Sotah is the wayward wife, and when we read it just in a cursory fashion, it sounds like this is a late night horror movie. And we have a man, well, it says over here, a man whose wife shall go astray, commit treachery against him, umal of amal, right? And a man might have slept with her, the husband didn't know, she was secluded, defiled, no witnesses. He warned his wife, and then he brings it to the Cohen. They bring a certain offering, and then the Cohen, verse 16, will bring her near, have her stand before Hashem. He'll take this mayim, take this water, mayim kedoshim, sacred water. That's from the kior, from the fountain there. That's in the courtyard. And he'll take from some of the earth of the courtyard, mix it into the water, and then he will uncover her hair and have the meal offering. I'm just reading the psukim. He'll make her swear, verse 19, that she did not sleep with another man, right? He'll take this parsha, this scripture of Sotah, including God's name, blotted out in that water. The whole writing becomes blotted out. She then drinks that water, and if she was in fact disloyal, then her body explodes and she dies this very, very gruesome death. Like I said, cursory reading, it is a late night horror story. Let's try to get, and it's with the Torah Shebaal Peh. It's with the way that the Rabbanon, the rabbis, the sages, extract laws from these psukim, and the structure then becomes somewhat different than the way we imagine it. And I think we can gain a different perspective on this. First of all, this only happens if the husband warned the wife in front of two witnesses, don't be alone with so-and-so. It's got to be, it's not like this controlling husband. I don't want you out of my sight. I don't want you to ever go out with your friends. That's not what we're dealing with over here. We're dealing with a relationship that is clearly in distress, right? If a husband needs to tell his wife, I don't want you going off into a motel room with so and so, if there's the need for such a warning, then this relationship is in distress. There's another factor here. This whole process only begins if he tells his wife that in front of witnesses. In front of witnesses. Now, once again, I think that just aggravates it further, right? Meaning you could have a relationship in distress where a husband will say, I don't want you going off with so-and-so for a long walk. We're going away with a bunch of other couples. I don't want you going off for a long walk with so-and-so, right? But that's what a husband would probably say to his wife privately. To say it in front of witnesses shows just how dire the straits are of this relationship. Because to have to say it is bad enough. To say it in front of witnesses, that's really just, it's clear now to everyone just how tortured this relationship is. Just how stressed, just how close to the breaking point this relationship is. And then what happens? Witnesses see them go and seclude themselves. Witnesses see them walk off into a forest. Witnesses see them check into a hotel, into a motel room. Now, if he confronts her and says, what happened? And she says, I'm telling you, absolutely nothing happened there. Now, yes, Cheryl, right? He says, absolutely nothing happened. She says, absolutely nothing happened over there. Okay. I don't think he is going to be overly convinced. I promise nothing happened. I promise, I swear to God, nothing happened over there. We did not engage in relations. This relationship is basically unsalvable. That's what it would seem. This relationship is basically non-salvable unless something happens. Unless God comes and testifies nothing happened, I don't think there's any way that he will feel confident that nothing happened. There needs to be two major factors. Number one, like I said, God comes and testifies that nothing happened, A, and B, there needs to be a serious want by both of them to repair this relationship and a willingness to do the hard work that it's going to take to rebuild this relationship. Short of that, it is doomed. That's what it seems to me. Now, you might be asking, rightfully so, well, why is it that the man tells the woman, don't be alone? Why isn't it that the woman tells the man? Why don't we have a mirror Parsha of either a husband or a wife who tells their spouse in front of witnesses, don't be alone with so-and-so, and that person is alone with so-and-so? Why is this so one-sided? And why is it only the husband warning the wife? Why isn't also the wife warning the husband? And the answer to that, I don't know if it'll sit all that well with my female class attendees, But the reason is that based on Torah law, a man can have more than one wife, but a woman cannot have more than one husband. So therefore, based on Torah law, a man could be alone with another woman. A man could have multiple wives. Rabbinically, for more than 500 years now, at least clearly in the Ashkenazic, but I believe also in the Sephardic, that has been outlawed. Rabbinically, it is outlawed that a man cannot have more than one wife. And I think the relation, it's interesting. The Torah itself, when it refers to multiple wives, they are called, anybody know what they're called? Sarot. Sarot. Tzadi Reish Vav Taf. And all the Hebrew speakers are smiling. Sarot means tsaras. It means troubles. It means rivals. Right? It's not, the Torah does not describe it in the way that you might hear some women in Iowa describing their polygamous relationships, that, oh, we're all sisters, we're all this. The Torah describes them as rivals, which gives us an inkling as to how this relationship is going to be. And I think perhaps, this is my conjecture, that based on this rabbinic ruling out of having more than one wife, a relationship has evolved and changed, to me, for the better. That now it's less of a structure of the man and then the wives and then the children, but it's the husband and wife together as a true partnership team. And that, in my mind, maybe I'm just too Americanized. In my mind, that is a very, very healthy way of building a family and building a relationship. It's far less patriarchal, and now it really is a team together. Yes, Leah.
I have a question. You said that according to the Torah, the man can have more than one wife, okay? But what if he has a relationship out of wedlock? I mean, can he go and, have a relationship with another woman without marrying her?
Certainly he is not supposed to, right? It was later on that we had rabbinic safeguards put in place. Did we lose you, Leah? Might have lost Leah. So maybe I'll wait to answer until she comes back on. Yeah. Okay. So that is why it goes in one direction. Leah's back. Yes, Leah. So certainly he's not allowed to, but that would not cause anything to be prohibited. And it was later on that rabbinically we had those issues of yichud, of not even being alone, right? With not being alone with a man and woman who are not married should not be alone with one another, right? In a situation which can be compromising. Yeah. So the laws of yichud were rabbinically instituted, and I think with the Me Too movement, we get a very, very good glimpse at the wisdom and the beauty of these laws. And even though former Vice President Pence took a lot of heat when he said that he would not, go out for dinner, with a woman if his wife wasn't there, and it's interesting. A lot of the women's libers were crying out about that, right? Because that takes down perhaps different business opportunities, and things like that. But at the same time, that is in order to protect. We hear so much in the film industry and in many industries about how women are compromised, right? And are taken advantage of. And this is something that was instituted to make sure that there are no power plays and there are no situations that are imposed, and that everyone always feels safe. I've told this story before when I was living in Israel, that I was homesick one day and Natalie was out, and a neighbor, a very fine woman, right, came asking if she could borrow some eggs. And I was lying down on the couch. I wasn't feeling well. And I told her, yes, please just help yourself. Open the refrigerator. You'll see the eggs there and take what you need. Right. And she left, realizing Natalie wasn't home and I was home, and she was, so she walked into the house. She left the door open so as not to create a situation of yichud, of a man and a woman being secluded together. And I thought to myself, this is such a beautiful halacha. And I'll explain what I mean. Let's say she would have felt, let's say there were no laws of yichud. And let's say she would have felt uncomfortable being alone with me in the house. So she would have decided to leave the door open. That would have been very insulting to me. You think I'm going to jump you, right? Right? You think I'm some sort of animal who's gonna pounce on you? Oh, now I have her alone in my house. It'd be very insulting to me. Or let's say let's say I would have felt uncomfortable being alone with her. I'd say, can you please leave the door open? Right? It'd be very insulting to her. She think, what does he think I am? Some sort of seductress over here? I'm coming to borrow some eggs, and also I'm going to jump onto the couch with the guy, right? It would have been very insulting, one to the other, no matter which direction it went. But like this, she doesn't suspect me. I don't suspect her. The door is left open. That's what we do. That's what we do. It wasn't that she was suspicious of me, I was suspicious of her. It completely depersonalized it into this is what's done. And that way, in a situation where a person truly does feel uncomfortable, they don't need to put it in the other person's face, I don't trust you. It's completely depersonalized. Completely depersonalized. As long as I'm on this topic before we get back to Sotah, when I was teaching in high school, so we were coming onto this idea of nigia, of not touching someone of the opposite sex, right? And when I was a teenager and I came back from yeshiva and I became more scrupulous in these laws, I remember my father saying to me, I understand you don't want to kiss your girlfriends anymore, but Aunt Zelda, what's wrong with kissing Aunt Zelda when you see Aunt Zelda? Right? But on the other hand, there are so many situations of people being abused by an uncle, by an aunt, by a cousin, by a this, right? Most of the, God forbid, the sexual abuse that happens is not from a stranger. It's from someone that the family knows and trusts. So you have an uncle giving his niece a hug and kiss hello, right? 99% of the time, it is completely harmless. But for that 1% or 0.1% or 0.01%, whatever it is, times when it's not harmless, so then that person is really, really damaged, harmed for life. So doesn't it make sense to draw the line and say, you know what? To protect that 1 in 100 or that 1 in 1,000, let's say when you see your niece, you say, hi, it's so nice to see you. Tell me what's going on. Where are you in school? And without the hug and the kiss, where the lines can get a little bit blurry. Okay, coming back to Sotah. So again, we have this relationship that is clearly in desperate state. A, Right? I can't imagine having to tell Natalie, I don't want you to be alone with so-and-so. I can't imagine having to tell her that. I certainly can't even imagine telling her that in front of two witnesses. How embarrassing, how humiliating to me, to her. So we're already at a very, very treacherous point in this relationship. And then the wife checks into a motel room. Witnesses see her check into a motel room with this guy. If it's with another guy, it's not Sotah. If she wasn't warned, it's not Sotah. He wasn't warned in front of witnesses, it's not Sotah. This whole process is only warned in front of witnesses, and then witnesses saw her check into a room with that guy. And they didn't walk in and walk out. They were there long enough for intimate relations to have taken place. So now again, the only way this relationship can be salvaged is if A, God himself comes and testifies nothing happened in there. And secondly, they have to really want to make this work. They have to realize we are on life support now in this relationship. And unless we really work on this, let's just go our separate ways and maybe we could each find happiness elsewhere. But this is not working. So what is this process? He brings her, as we said, to the Cohen, to the Beit HaMikdash, and there's a meal offering that is brought. And then there is this whole water gig, and then she drinks the water. Now, let's say she knows she was intimate with this guy. So what would she do if she were to come to me and say, Rabbi, what do I do now? I was intimate with the guy. And now I'm going to go to the Beit HaMikdash. What do I do? But I'm embarrassed to say I was. So probably what I would, between the lines, say to her is, look, you could just say, I don't want to drink. I don't want to go through all this. You don't have to admit what happened. You could say, if this is the point that the relationship has gotten to, I'm not interested in continuing the relationship. In that case, she won't be forced to drink. She'll get a get. She will lose her ketubah. The ketubah, the monetary payment that a woman normally gets upon divorce, she will forfeit that. But, there are repercussions for our indiscretions. So I don't think our heart is bleeding. Well, why should she lose her ketubah? I think if her husband in front of witnesses said, don't be alone with some guy, and then she checked into a hotel with the guy and had relations with the guy, I think we can accept that she forfeits her ketubah, right? She doesn't pay any penalty to the husband. She's not paying him alimony, but she loses her ketubah, and she can now start her life afresh. The only woman who's going to go through this whole process is a woman who knows nothing happened. Nothing happened in there. It was wrong. I shouldn't have gone in there. My husband, right? It certainly had a terrible appearance. But I know, and God knows, that nothing happened in that room. Such a woman will go through with the entire process. And what will happen? She'll drink that water, and there will be no harmful effect from that water. And basically, God is testifying The husband knows 100% that God is testifying nothing happened in that motel room. And if she's going through all this and he's going through all this, they want to make it work. They want to get back together. And with this, I might have answered a question that I've always had in my mind as I'm talking now. And this is a question that I was at a rabbi's table at a wedding when there was separate seating. So there was a whole rabbi's table. And I posed this question, and I didn't get I didn't get an answer that really satisfied me. If you take a look on page 756, which is Perek Hey, Pasuk Chavchet, the very bottom of 756, verse 28. So it went through the whole thing over there, right? 27, she'll drink the water, and if she did have this relationship, then the water will come there and the body explodes. Oh, by the way, not only does this happen to her, if she did have relations and she goes through with this, which again, I can't imagine why in the world she would. But if she did have relations and goes through with this, and now her body starts to explode, it's not just her body. But actually, if you look back to 21 for a minute, and the Cohen will make her swear this oath and say, right, if you've done wrong, then your thigh, your stomach, etc. will swell, explode. 22, and the water will enter and cause the stomach and the thigh. We already just said in 21 the stomach and the thigh will be affected. Why is it saying again in 22 the stomach and the thigh will be affected? That's not her stomach and thigh. That's his stomach and thigh, not the husband, the guy that she had relations with, right? He's there Sunday morning reading his newspaper, having his bagels and cream cheese, sipping on his coffee. All of a sudden he says, what's in this coffee? What's with this bagel? And all of a sudden he has a simultaneous, this is synchronized stomach explosion, a new Olympic sport, synchronized stomach explosion, right? Just as it's happening to her, it's happening to him at the same time. Okay, so that was verse 27 speaking about that. Now verse 28. If she did not defile herself by this married woman having relations with another man, utahorahi, and she is pure, v'nikta, fair enough, that she'll be proven innocent. V'nizra'a zera, the pasuk says, and now she will have children. If until this point she was unable to have children, now she'll have children. If beforehand she had difficulty in having children, now it'll be easy to have children. Actually, the Gemara, the Talmud tells us that Chana, who was barren and was unable to have children, and the Navi Shmuel begins with her heartfelt prayers at the Mishkan, that Eli thought that she was drunk, right, because she was davening so passionately. And many of the aspects of tefillah, of the way to daven, we learn out from Chana. Rak svatah naot, only her lips were moving. The kolah, but her voice was not heard. We learn out when we say the Amida, we can't just eyeball it. We need to say it, but only we hear it. No one else. We learn things out from Chana. The Gemara tells us that Chana played hardball with God. And she said, God, give me a child. If not, I'm going to have my husband warn me not to be alone with someone. I'll be alone with him. And then I'll come and I'll drink. And you won't make your Torah false. And it says there that if the person is tahora, is pure, I'll have a child. So I could force your hand to give me a child, God. So why do we have to go through all that? Just give me a child. Let me become pregnant and let me have a child. So if the woman is pure, she seems to get this prize, this bounty, this reward almost. But that seems strange to me. There's a concept, shelo yehe chote nischar. We have a concept, if someone should not be rewarded, nischar, you shouldn't get sachar, you shouldn't be rewarded for doing something wrong. See here, she did something very wrong. She checked into a motel room with another man. Specifically the man that her husband told her not to, but any man is wrong to check into you're a married woman, you don't check into a motel room with another man. You're a married man, you don't check into a motel room with another woman. She did something very wrong. Why should she be rewarded? That was the question that I asked at this rabbi's table at a wedding many years ago. And I didn't get an answer. I don't remember any of the answers, which means that I didn't get an answer that really satisfied me. But maybe what we're saying today helps us understand. Maybe a person, granted she did something wrong, she should not have checked into the motel room, clear. But a person, and she's not being rewarded. Maybe we look at it as incentive, meaning a person whose relationship was so on the rocks and is willing to do the heavy work in putting it back together, we need to incentivize that person. Because it's so easy to say, forget about it. I'm out of here. So easy to walk away and say, forget it. I don't want to put in the hard work to make this happen. So maybe it's not an idea of rewarding her. Yay, you didn't sleep with the guy that you checked into the motel room. You're not going to get rewarded for that because he shouldn't have checked into the motel room in the first place. It's not a reward. It's an incentive because a relationship is such an important thing. And a marriage is such an important thing. And the Torah wants to incentivize. This is one that is so desperate, so on its last legs, it's on life support. And if they're willing to put in the heavy work, we need to encourage that. We need to incentivize that as much as we possibly can. So again, what we have over here is the two ingredients necessary for this relationship that is so faltering to come together. We have God testifying everything's good, and we have them willing to do the hard work. Then the Torah incentivizes them to get it done, to get back together. But again, if she knows that she is not going to pass this test, then all she needs to do is say, if he doesn't trust me, I don't want to stay married to him. If this is where we're at, I've had enough. She will not be forced to drink. The relationship ends. They each go their way, and hopefully they can each find happiness and a solid relationship elsewhere. Yes, Ora.
Rabbi, maybe you can clarify, according to Jewish law, what it means to be intimate. I think being intimate can be a heart connection even without any physical.
Okay. So that you're raising an excellent point, and she's only right in a very literal sense here, right? She's only affected by the water if they engaged in sexual relations. Sexual relations meaning penetration, right? Not Bill Clinton, right? Actual sexual relations, right? But you're raising a very important point, and I think that is a serious issue that we have today, right? With the internet and these different chat rooms and social media, that you do have situations where a husband or wife is forming an intimate bond, not physical in any way, but an emotional bond with someone else, which is, I would say, almost equally destructive to a marriage. Yeah, yeah, and that is something. It's interesting. Natalie and I were having a discussion with a couple over Shabbos, I think it was, and part of the idea of, well, I shouldn't say, a component of the family purity structure, which is that once the woman starts her period, then the husband and wife separate from any physical, not just intimacy, but any physical contact for about 12 days until the period ends, and then seven clean days that they're called, 7 days where there's no bleeding at all, and then she goes to the mikveh. And a component of that is it forces them to build also that non-physical, emotional relationship. And that way, and for a relationship to be healthy, there needs to be, the Torah emphasizes the need for a healthy physical relationship, an active physical relationship, but it must be accompanied by an engaged emotional bond that they have. And it is the family purity cycle that reinforces both of those and makes sure, right? It almost enforces that there be a physical relationship. I'm surprised by how many times I hear, right, that we don't have that component of a marriage, right, and that is not fully healthy, right? And certainly if they don't have the emotional component, so then that also is, right, is very unhealthy. So yes, in terms of the sotah, it's only if they engaged in actual sexual relations, but certainly the Torah and the rabbinic structure of law is put in place in a way that it works to make sure that both of these essential components of marriage, the emotional and the physical, are both there, and that is what Vayu lebasar echad, as the pasuk says, right? They become as one, and that's only when it is both in a physical and in an emotional sense. Okay, I also wanted to touch upon the next idea, which is a Nazir, a Nazirite. And that's on page 758. That's Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph. And I saw something very interesting on Aleph Beta about this. So what is this Nazir? Nazir is a person, man or a woman, who takes an oath to be a Nazir. If the person does not specify the duration, then it's 30 days. But if they specify, then it could be for a different period of time. During this time period, there are three basic categories of restrictions that go upon them. Number one, they don't become tamei mate. They don't come in contact with a dead body. Okay. Number two, they don't drink any wine or grape derivatives at all. Number three, they grow their hair, right, in in a somewhat unkempt fashion. So what is this about? The person on one hand is called a kadosh, a holy person when he does this or she does this. There also is some element of chet, of sin, because at the end of the process, sacrifices are brought, and one of the sacrifices is a chatat, is a sin offering. So is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? If this is a good thing, maybe it should be for everyone. Why is it left to this? I choose to be this Nazir. So the general approach, before I get to the component that Aleph Beta added in, the general approach is that the Torah is what God mandates, the mitzvot, for everyone. But there are those who might want to take it to the next level. And if they do, they are on one level considered to be kadosh, holy, because they are separating themselves more. At the same time, the Gemara actually says, if a person accepts upon themselves a fast day, right? They're sinning. Why? Well, they say if the Nazir who abstains from just wine is called a chote, the son who abstains from everything is certainly called a chote, a sinner. Meaning what? God gave us a beautiful world. God gave us wonderful things. And we're supposed to appreciate it. We're supposed to utilize it. I give an example before. You buy a child a brand new bicycle as a gift, right? And then you go visit whoever, the family a few months later, and you see the bicycle is still in the box. It hasn't been taken out. It's not being used. So the feeling you have is, I gave this beautiful gift. Why isn't it being used? Hashem says, I gave you this beautiful gift. I gave you this beautiful world. Use it. Now, granted, if I recognize that I'm using it in a way that becomes non-controlled, therefore I need to make some safeguards for myself. But ideally, we're not in such a state. And we use it properly, and we appreciate the gift that God gave us, and we use it as a way of elevating ourselves, elevating our relationship, and connecting to God. So that's the general approach to Nazir. But what's very interesting is the things that they are not allowed to do. Right? So let's take the first one. They're not allowed to come in contact, even if their father, mother, brother, sister die. They don't involve themselves in that burial. Who else has such a restriction? Who else, Kathy?
The priest, the
Yes,
Kohanim.
the Cohen Gadol, the high priest. A regular priest has restrictions, but for mother, father, sister, brother can. The Cohen Gadol cannot. So in that respect, it's Kohen Gadol-like. Now, similarly, a Kohen, when he's going to do the avoda, going to do the service, has to abstain from any beverages. And the Nazir has to abstain from any beverages. Lastly, and this is almost opposite, the Kohen Gadol wears a special turban and a plate on his forehead called the tzitz, And that's called his Nazir, his crown. And over here also, we have the term of his hair. Just 1 second. Right? The term that we use is the Nazir. That's the crown. And what are we calling him? A Nazir. The same, right? He's almost like he's being crowned. But here his crowning is, whereas the Kohen Gadol needs to always trim his hair, so that every shift of Kohanim, when they come for their weekly shift of service, they see the Kohen Gadol in his full regality. His Nazir is the growing of the hair. But he also has this hair crown. And they point out the term the Torah uses for a non-Kohen is a zar. A zar, a foreigner. A zar is a term for a non-Kohen. And he becomes what? A nazar. A nun zayin resh. So what we have over here is a person, you know, the famous rabbi joke. Rabbis love to tell this joke. A person comes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I want to be a Kohen. Says, I'm sorry, I can't make you into a Kohen. He comes back, Rabbi, I want to be a Cohen. I can't. I want to be a Cohen. Listen, why do you want to be a Cohen? Because my father was a Cohen, my grandfather was a Cohen. I also want to be a Cohen. Now, of course, that's a joke. If his father's a Cohen, he's automatically a Cohen. But we can't make someone a Cohen. But maybe the Nazir is the person who wants to become that non-zar. He wants to become Cohen-like. And that's okay. You too can be a Cohen. But it's very interesting to note, they point this out. Who wanted to be a Cohen? Who in the biblical stories wanted to be a Cohen and it didn't end up very well?
Korach.
Korach wanted to be a Cohen. It didn't end up very well. So we see from there, don't try to be a Cohen. But we see from Nazir, you can try to be a Cohen. So again, they broke it down very nicely. What is the Cohen? What are, they say, 3 aspects of being a Cohen? What's special to a Cohen? A Cohen does certain avoda. He does certain service in the Beit HaMikdash. Only a Cohen can do that. A non-Cohen can't do that. That's one aspect. A second aspect, a Cohen has certain restrictions which allow them to get closer to God. Thirdly, a Cohen gets certain honors, prizes, benefits. There are benefits of being a Cohen. In our world, he gives the Birchat Kohanim on Yom Tovim. He gives the priestly blessing. He gets the first aliyah to the Torah. Reading from the Torah, he's called up first for the very first aliyah. In the time of the Beit HaMikdash, he gets the truma. He gets all these different things. So there is the closeness to God, there is the service, and there are the honors. What did Korach want? Korach wanted, said, Lamatit Nasu, why should you be at the top of the pyramid? Al Kahal Hashem. Right? Korach wanted the honor of the Kohanim. The honor of the Kohanim goes along because they're doing the avoda, they're doing this service. And only they can do the service. His group they brought the fire pans and the incense, that didn't end up well. They all died. And the honors, that's not a healthy, positive reason to want to be a Cohen to get the honors. That doesn't work. The Nazir is different. What does the Nazir want to do? What does he want? Which aspect does he want? He or she wants the closeness. Oh, that already is a positive act. That's a positive thing. You also want to be a Cohen, right? You're not born of the Cohen. You're a girl. You're a boy who's not from the tribe of Cohen. You want that closeness. Ish o isha, a man or a woman, if they make this neder, this oath to crown themselves with this nazirus, beautiful. That is beautiful. But one other aspect that they bring out as fascinating is that the sacrifices that the Nazir brings at the end of their term are the same exact sacrifices that a Cohen would bring at his induction into becoming a Cohen. So they bring it on the way out. The Cohen brings it on the way in. And perhaps an explanation for that is that if you're not a Cohen, it's going to be very hard to maintain that forever. But what do you need to do? You need to, so you had your period, you had your spell. But it's not just, well, that was great, and now I'm moving on. One needs to induct that into their day-to-day life. You're going to get back into your day-to-day life, but your day-to-day life must be elevated, must be consecrated by the time that you spent as a Cohen, as a quasi-Cohen, as a Nazir, right? Similarly, that we were told after Har Sinai, after Mount Sinai, we're told, Shuvu lachem la'ahalechem, return to your tents. And there the understanding is, take that Sinai experience and bring it home. Bring it into your tents. Make that a part of what your life will be now. So your life now must be on a different plane. On your day-to-day mundane life, it needs to have been elevated, consecrated by that time that you spent on that mountaintop, so to speak. But that's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be involved. Take that infusion that you receive then and make sure that it permeates who and what you are as you go through life, the day to day, and make sure that that becomes uplifted. So that I thought was a very, very beautiful aspect of Nazir that they added to the usual understandings. Yes, Leah.
I have like a grammatical question, basically. You mentioned that the Nazir is like the Nazir of the Cohen, the crown. But it reminds me of another word that stems from the same root, same shoresh, mazor, healing. So does it have anything to do with the Cohen abilities or duties to do the healing as well? I mean, spiritual
Interesting.
healing?
Mazor, Mem Zayin Vavresh,
Yeah.
means healing.
Mazor
Interesting.
means like medication, medicine.
Interesting.
Yeah, mazor.
I don't
הביא
think
מזור
it's the same
לכאבו.
root.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a biblical word in that context.
I don't think it's the same root.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
so.
know. I don't know. I don't know that. I'm not familiar with that word. Not that it means it isn't. I'm not familiar with that word in a biblical context. In which case,
Okay.
there's a lot of modern Hebrew words. I have this with Uzi very often. He'll say, well, this word means this in modern Hebrew, right? But in a biblical sense, that's not how it's, sometimes that's not how it's used. So I don't know that. Though the Cohen does serve as a healing agent through the kapara that he brings, right? But I don't know that it has this, that biblical application. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, my friends. Good. So we have decided next week we will be online. The week after I'm away, so that is the 14th we're online. The 21st I'm away. The 28th we get back in person. So let us get ready for that. All right, I know you're up north, so
Yeah, I'll be here as much as possible.
we will still offer
Thank
the
you.
option, but we will be in person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you very much.
Shavua tov, everybody.
Bye-bye.